Assalamu alaikum, my dear people. I hope you're doing well. Let me cover an important topic with you today, and that is righteous social activism. Now, the Qur'an, the book that we source our inspiration and our guidance from, you cannot escape that concept if you read the Qur'an over and over. If you really study the book, you're going to come to the conclusion that there is a need for you. If you consider yourself a student or a member or a person who is guided by that book, you're going to find that there is a clear call on you to become active. In other words, to become socially present and engaged with people. And if you're telling me that you've read the Qur'an and there is no such message that you can discern, and I'm here to give you some news, my friends. Let me take a few verses from the Qur'an quickly, and then we can dispel that notion that Islam is in any shape or way a form of pacifist religion, and that Islam is merely a academic endeavor, or it is a private spiritual practice, which from my reading of the Quran is impossible to come to such a conclusion. So let me look at a few verses with you, and then you tell me if you can agree that Islam is not a religion that promotes activism. I'm going to start with chapter 3, verse 104, where the Quran states, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولتكن منكم أمة يدعون إلى الخير ويأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر وأولئك هم المفلحون. ولتكن منكم أمة يدعون إلى الخير ويأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر وأولئك هم المفلحون. Now there are three verbs in this particular verse. Let me just quickly go through it. Let there arise from amongst you a vanguard that promotes excellence, advocates for the common good while preventing evil. Such are the ones who will attain success. There are three active verbs in that sentence. Promote, yad'un, invites to good, wa ya'murun, and commands or advocates what is for the common good, وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ, and who actively prevents evil conduct or evil from proliferating in society. So right there you have three active verbs that tells you to be socially active. But that's not the only one. Let me take you to chapter 3, verse 110. كُنْتُمْ خَيْرَ أُمَّةٍ أُخْرِجَتْ لِلنَّاسِ تَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. You are the community of excellence evolved for humanity. Right? So once again, there is a qualification, a set of qualification for you being a community of excellence. Right? كُنْتُمْ خَيْرَ أُمَّةٍ أُخْرِجَتْ لِلنَّاسِ. You are the community of excellence who advocate with the common good, prevent evil, and embrace God. So I'll just read up till there. Again, in no unclear terms, the need for you to be active in your society. There's no Islam without activism, my dear friends. There's no excellence, there's no khair, there's no community of excellence without social activism. Let's just look at one more verse. And we look at chapter 3, verse 114. يؤمنون بالله, again qualifications offered here. واليوم الآخر ويأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر. Embracing God and the final day, advocating for the common good. Again, that ma'ruf coming up, preventing evil and outdoing themselves in excellence. Again, the same concept. The idea of that activist community, that community that is there to wake up society. And that is the Quran I read. I don't know what Quran you read. If you're reading some other Quran, then you must send me, which where am I wrong? But the way I read my Qur'an, this book, this amazing, miraculous text, is that I have to be an activist. And I have to play a role. And one of the key points there is to advocate for the common good, not advocate for the Qur'an, not advocate for Islam, not advocate for Sharia. No, ma'roof. What is ma'roof? Amr bil ma'roof means advocating what is ma'roof, which is common in everyone's common interest. And so there's the concept of activism, of agency, my friends. Again, we come back to the idea of agency. Now, if you think you can make Islam your personal hobby and it can be your little escape zone where you can sit in your corner, then you've got a wrong Islam there, my friend. So I just want to caution you if that is your misunderstanding. There is no Islam without activism. But now, the problem, what is the problem? You see, we're living in a world, and the Prophet ﷺ and all those who were activists in the past, all those other Anbiya, all those other Mursaleen, all those other A'imma, all those Muballighin, those who were noble activists of history, who came to society to improve it, to create, to be a community, a vanguard in their society for excellence, for the common good, not for your ideology, but for the common good of society, right? So, what is the problem? You see, the problem we face is that every oppressive force, every wicked force on this planet has forever tried to stunt, to obstruct you from becoming an activist. And they use various methods. Now, okay, you might be some professional, you might be some employee of some company, and so you will always feel that counter force to you becoming an activist, right? You will always, the first thing you will have is just that sense of indifference. That sense of indifference. And we always, the default position of humanity, of any human being is always, we choose indifference if we can. But what the Qur'an is telling is that indifference is not an option. Apathy is not an option. There is no excellence. There is no advancing yourself spiritually without breaking the indifference, without discarding the apathy. Becoming an activist is part of you acquiring that state of iman, that state of commitment, of embracing of what is true, what is real, what is right. And that is what we are calling for, is that activism. But as I've said, the oppressor, those who would want to maintain the oppressive status quo, will always make it their mission to keep you in a state of indifference. So they will keep you busy with your materialistic pursuits, with upgrading your phone, with concentrating on upgrading your house, with concentrating on upgrading your car, or with fine-tuning these passing luxuries that will be temporary and, of a form that is fleeting and temporary in this world. They will focus you on these fleeting, passing phenomena or achievements and accomplishments and take your attention away from the things and the decisions that will have long-lasting benefit for yourself and for your society. And this has been theorized in the field that I'm active with, in social science and in education. We deal with a concept, and I'm going to take you through this concept just briefly, the concept of fractured reflexivity. Now, human beings are by nature reflexive. We reflect to any challenge, to any situation that confronts us, right? If you look at pre-modern society, if you hunger, you make your moves and you go and you find food. You either grow food or you go on a hunting expedition and you hunt for food. If you're in danger, you secure yourselves. You build a safe perimeter around your lodging, wherever you lodge yourself. And so we are programmed to be active, to be responsive. And responsiveness, activism, or being active in terms of the realities, is a core human trait. It sets us apart from all those other plant life and docile worms and birds and animals. We are a people who have a high level of reflection and intellect with which we can confront the challenges that face us at a very, very high, complex level. But that is the problem. That is just the problem. When the oppressor, when those who are in control of our world, those who are the elite, those who control the very macroeconomics, the very way that society is structured, the very way that we are rewarded for our hard work, the very way that our safety and our security and that peace amongst people is being sustained and guaranteed, these very macro realities are being taken away from us, are taken out of our hands, and we become indifferent and apathetic. And at that point, we lose our humanity. We lose the ability to act with effect in the world. Now, let me just say that, okay, before I go on, let's look at this concept of reflexiveness. And let me first go through the meaning of the word. Reflexivity is the ability to reflect on one's own thoughts, feelings, and actions, and to use this reflection to guide one's future decisions and actions. Reflexivity is essential for human agency, which is the capacity to act intentionally and autonomously in the world. Now, my friends, it seems very obvious when I write it, when I put it here like this, but these are core human traits. These are the core essence of what it means to be human. However, not all forms of reflexivity are equally conducive to effective action. In a book, The Reflexive Imperative in Late Modernity of 2012, sociologist Margaret Archer proposes a typology of 4 modes of reflexivity: communicative, autonomous, meta, and fractured. Now, I'm going to be focusing on fractured for now. Although I can just summarize to you that communicative, autonomous, and meta are just different ways in which different people grapple with the realities of their society, with the problems that face them. Now, for example, some people might choose to encounter a challenge in the real world and to then circumvent the challenge, right? So in other words, find a way of not dealing with it, right? And then circumventing it, bypassing it, short-circuiting it, in other words. Some people meet a challenge and might feel that it's better to confront the challenge head on, right? And then another third type of person might encounter a challenge and then might find ways of collaborating or adapting their own thinking or their own course of action in terms of that challenge. So recalibrating, readjusting their own direction in terms of that challenge. But it's not those 3 that I want to deal with. I want to deal with a fractured reflexive, because that is really the challenge today that most of you are undergoing. And that is that you have been forced to not act with effect in the real world. And I'm going to quickly move on. According to Archer, fractured reflexivity is a result of the increasing complexity of the modern world. That's her argument, which poses multiple and contradictory demands and expectations on individuals. Fractured reflexives are unable to cope with these challenges and experience a sense of fragmentation and disorientation. They are unable to form coherent and consistent identities and projects, and often resort to escapism or self-harm. My friends, doesn't that sound familiar? Doesn't that sound familiar to you? Let's continue. Fractured reflexivity is a barrier to effective action because it prevents individuals from developing a clear sense of who they are, what they want, and how they can achieve their goals. Fractured reflexives lack the confidence and motivation to pursue their interests and aspirations, and often feel powerless and hopeless. They are also unable to cooperate with others or to contribute to society in meaningful ways. Now, my friends, if that doesn't sound familiar to you, and then I take you back to the important point that I've raised in terms of the verse of the Qur'an, the verses of the Qur'an, that actually calls for activism, discounts or disapproves of inactivism. The idea that advocating, promoting what is right, stopping and opposing that which is evil. And the Quran also doesn't say promote what is right. It says promote what is to everyone's common good. It's a very important point there. Our social activism is about advocating for what is in the common interest of society. Not necessarily what is Sharia, what we think is important, but for what is in everyone's common interest. Now, how do they stop us from being active? You see, the agenda to turn you into a sheep or a cow or an inactive, disempowered, diffused human being is an age-old agenda. That agenda has been around since time immemorial. Now I'm going to give you some examples. In Christianity, they have the concept of the fallen earth. And you might have heard the concept of the fallen world. And that concept is a defeatist concept that robs you of your activism, because that concept argues that the world is surrendered to Satan and that all we can do is pray for the next life, that we will enjoy the kingdom of God. And that kingdom of God is beyond this satanic fallen world. But what you will find if you scrutinize this Christian concept, that it is nothing else but escapism. Nothing else but escapism. If you look at the Islamic concept, where they teach you, in Islam there's this concept of predestination, right? Now this predestination is a curse on the Muslim mind. It is the curse of the Muslim psyche through the ages. It is the reason why Muslims' activism has been stunted or impeded. The Muslim, if you travel to the Muslim lands, if you go to the Arab world, and you will find that the biggest problem to them improving their lot is this idea of it is in God's hands. That idea of it, all problems being in God's hands. Whereas the Qur'an says that each man shall carry responsibility for his own deeds. No man shall carry the responsibility of any other. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها لها ما كسبت وعليها ما اكتسبت. So how can you claim that you are not responsible for your actions? And yet that is the prevalent concept in Muslim lands, where they tell you for anything that goes wrong, Ma'alish, it's not on you, Ma'alish. It's fine, it is God's will, it's fine, move along, there's nothing to see. And that is how they try to switch off the activism, the shine, the glow in your eyes, and turn you into a captured animal, a diffused entity, a useless force, by these concepts of you do not have any say in the matter. So you have Christianity, you have Islam. And then what do we have in modern society? In modern society, we have the idea of mind your own business. In Western society now, where they have effectively also dumbed down their people, turned them into subhumans, into cattle, into grazing sheep and cattle. The idea was to establish so much despair, so much despondency, that people are switched off. So if you look at the media, if you look at the whisperers, the mass whisperers, the media that is speaking to you, the mouthpiece of the devil today, the mass media, the corporate media, which are, if you're still tuned in to CNN and to BBC and to Fox News and to all these networks, and you're still shaping your thinking via them, or any other Al Jazeera, or any of these other state-controlled, elite-controlled establishments, then you are allowing the whisperers to shape your thinking for you. And what I want to say is that these whisperers, these media whisperers, what their aim is not to destroy you, but to diffuse you. What they will do if you watch these media outlets enough is that they will show you that your activism, your work, your ability to affect the world amounts to zero. And the reason why there is an onslaught and a disruption of traditional ancient values and principles, the reason why they are perverting everything that is natural and human, is for you to understand that you are indeed powerless and that activism is futile, and you are better off buying a bigger television set. You are better off buying better furniture for your house. You are better off upgrading your car than to try and change society. And that is the way they are getting through to you. They are taking your focus away from the permanent, lasting causes and activities that you could be engaged in, and they are bringing you to, building a better physique, which is not a bad thing in itself, but that should not be the prime focus. Building a better physique, vanity, misplaced sense of virtue and social engagement, becoming an agent for this perversion. And that is how they misplace your activism, and so that you become a fractured reflexive. My friends, the long-term cause that we are involved in is the cause of establishing and promoting what is to everyone's common good, and for that we require activism in whatever way is possible. If we read in the Qur'an that we are to contribute as our own ability dictates. They ask you what you should give, say what is beyond your needs. And then we are called upon to make a contribution with our goods and with our persons, with our limited resources and with our ingenuity. Whether it is in whatever setting you find yourselves, that is where you ought to make a contribution for the common good of all people, and to argue against those practices, those ideas that are harmful and detrimental to society. And my friends, our call, our message is just that, to overcome those forces who want to turn you to a sheep, to a cow, to a grazing animal, to feeding yourself, to focusing on fleeting temporary benefits, but to focus on the important, key, central achievements in this world. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.